Okay, before I tackle the brakes, I want to tackle the exhaust. I had a second change of thought. It's going to be one of those, I want to be able to test drive it without making too much noise. I like my neighbors. So I did some checking and fitting and some pipe cuts, and I got it optimally in the place where I want it. This may not look like much at first, but remember, we're putting a huge honking Pentagon street bike muffler on here. So that, in theory, is where it's going to sit. And I can use my clamp to make a little tab to weld onto the left roll cage here to clamp on and bolt on and hold this part in place. There's some little other tabs I need to figure out what to weld on so I can attach my springs to cap it on, and then get our stainless piece or stainless-like piece kind of shroomed into this. But this is what I need to figure out first. That's hopefully the goal we're looking for here once everything's said and done. Can't wait to see how it sounds. Okay, little tip for you. I actually got it with a few tacks. Looks like 4, but one of them broke there. If you got a vise and you know that your gap is small enough, you can massage it to the shape that you want and then get it almost even. I'm not gonna argue and say that this is perfectly straight. I am learning new things, we'll just put it. But if you do your setup right, it still fits in the hole either way. So I'm gonna go ahead and work and massage this, and then we can do a sound test. Well, I got it. It ain't the prettiest, I will admit, but it does what it needs to do. Now, would I recommend welding carbon steel to a stainless steel piece? Absolutely not, especially in the trades. It's very frowned upon. But I'm looking in the mindset who has a cheap 110 welder, even if it's flux core, which I'd still recommend getting a gas setup if you can. That's just trying to avoid a hefty bill at the exhaust shop, which I'd still vouch to go for though if you can. But if you only got what you got, but you know how to weld, or at least have a principle of it, I ain't claiming to be the best, give it a shot. But based off my education and learning, you know you've done something right if it sounds like this. But the fun $1 million question, how does it sound? We'll do a during and then an after live. Oh dear. Oh boy. That's noisy. That's alright, and that's screaming noise complaints. But what's going to make the real difference is when I put this guy on. Get that slipped on in place. Oh yeah. I disconnected my kill switch, so that's why I have to do it that way. Okay, next step on the list is to figure out a couple of fixture points to keep this muffler from popping off. Now, the way that it's sitting, theoretically with gravity doing the work, this and the fitment I've got in my insert here, so to speak, we probably don't need to worry about having secondary securities. But there is that unforeseen chance where we're sending it down, we're giving it the beans, or we're bumping around, getting rowdy. This is going to somehow find a way to shoot itself off. So we have two things we got to do. We have our little clamp here that I need to hook up to the left back roll loop with just maybe a simple bracket, something that can come out and just make a quick little L and then meet up here and just be tight. That's just probably about as stupid simple as it gets. The other thing is these springs here. I'm gonna have to find a way to get that spring hooked into place, and then figure out somewhere to plug these guys, and then under proper tension, give it a good pull if it will let me, granted, and then that will be our security in a sense for keeping this in place. There's 2 springs, 2 for each side, but this can give me at least an idea of where I need to attempt to try to weld these little boogers on, which I don't know how that's gonna work or how thin this is, but we'll give it a shot. Worst comes to worst, make it cheap and simple, stick a nut on there, call it good. Woo! Woohoo! That, oh. Didn't feel anything, that made me, that tickled. Whew. Try again. There we go. I just need that tacked in place. That's all I'm asking. Very convenient thing about this is that it uses the same hardware, or I guess I should just say wrenches, as the street bike muffler on the trike, which is nice. Should be able to, yep, slide that down, and this, if I wanted to, can pop right off and we can have a party. And oh yeah, that's got flex, but that's not going anywhere, which is what I want. I'm okay with a little bit of flex. It's just what I don't want. What I don't want to see happen is I lift up and this rips off. So we got some good welds on there. I can live with that. Something like that with just a couple of quick tacks, I think will suffice. Emphasis on think. These could break off, but at least we have something that will conceptually work. Okay, this should be going on for the hopefully last time before post-processing, like powder coat or what have you. Let's see how we did. Yep, there we go. Slips on somewhere around there. And I messed up. How? So I don't know if you could see it on the camera. I welded on my hanger tabs on the wrong side. 90 degrees out. Dang it. Yeah, I've done goofed that up. Doggone it. Alright, well, be back in a second. Right, sorry that I didn't film it, but long story short, I got it backwards and I broke it how to use a nut. But nut doesn't look too bad. These, when I'm trying to pull them over, I have a bit of tension, but as soon as I get them over, this one's actually a little bit tight. This one's got a little bit of loose, but that's okay. Honestly, I'm assessing the situation with my clamp up here. I don't think these are needed, so these are kind of like as a secondary failsafe. This is the main unit here, because I mean, I don't know the easiest way to show this, but if I kind of back up here and shake this, I will shake the whole cart. Like this is solid. Like this is not going anywhere. This is about as simple, stupid that it can get compared to that design over there, which nothing wrong with that. It's great, but I mean, simplicity at its finest. So anyway, I think now at this point, I can go for a test drive now, knowing I've got a little bit more audible freedom, but the brakes don't work. We need to fix that. All right, I got it raised off the floor. I think the most easiest and simple method of trying to figure out how to get this off is just to use the Sawzall and just cut it right at the joint. I'm sawing right into the angle. All right, let's see if we can do it with the skinny wheel. I think there's a weld on the other side I'm fighting. Dang. All right. Well, different approach. Might have to take the caliper apart, maybe drop the axle, and then catch it when I get this caliper off. Got it. Took a little bit, but I decided to use a little bit more of the Sawzall, and I got a hairline crack showing for this part. I used some leverage and I plucked it out and then got the linkage removed. Now it's just dangling here. I'm gonna try to utilize this. Maybe I mean to throw a bend in here to point it to where I want it to, but now I've got free access to the brake, and actually a lot better access to mock something up to mount our hydro brake. But I've got another problem. Notice, driver's side wheel, it actually moves with the axle rather swiftly, has no play in it. This wheel, I believe, got replaced after being seized, and there's a problem. There's a little bit of rock in here. I don't know if that's the wheel being tight or we have a sheared key or what, but I'm gonna have to find a way to pull this out and check. But I think I want to keep that in mind and then keep going on the brakes so that hopefully if I have it set up, I can lock the brakes so I can loosen that nut over there. Have a better chance since, well, this is on stands now. I've been sitting out here scratching my head for about 45 minutes or so trying to figure out what's going to be the best optimal for my setup here if I didn't want to make anything custom at the moment, which not opposed to doing that, but if I don't have to right now, we can omit that. My biggest problem is clearance and also trying to get this into a serviceable spot. I tried to have this caliper on this side where I optimally want it, but I'm trying to, there's no a feasible short distance way to get a piece of plate from A to B on the other side. Not to mention when I reverse the direction of my brake line, it impedes into our belt drive, so that's out of the picture. Realistically, if our caliper was on the passenger side of the cart, that will be our best bet. So down the road, if I really wanted to, if I need to do some drivetrain upgrades, say for instance, replace this shaft here, we'll cut this off, get rid of it, make our own rotor with a hub that can be welded around on it, and then relocate to the other side. That's probably a future thing down the road. So anywhere on the inside is out of the question. I can't do it on the back side here because I would impede, or I wouldn't be able to get the caliper out. So I think my only best option is somewhere down low where I'm making enough contact patch, but just enough to where I can loosen this up and then pull the caliper out that way. I got my plate. I got it tacked in place where I roughly want it. So now I've just been doing a lot of test fitting essentially to make sure it's gonna work. And I think I've got something that might or might not work. We're gonna find out one way or another. But that tells me I can weld out this plate onto our supplied bracket, put a little stitch weld on the underside, get it cleaned up, and then bring it over here to weld onto the cart and then figure out how to mount our master cylinder, so to speak. But yeah, I would be doing a lot of the filming of behind the scenes of finding this off camera, but there's just a lot of plug and play, and this would be turned into a really long video. So I'm just trying to get you guys the highlights and try to improve my video production. If you guys want to see the longer videos though, give me a shout out in the comments and tell me what you guys want instead. I gotta say, for the small little brackets here, that's probably one of the best welds I've ever done. I really love how that one turned out. I don't want to grind it, honestly. And I don't think I have to with the way, ow, that caliper is mounted. I put a little stitch weld on the inside there just for extra support. Didn't want to go any closer to compromise the fitting of the caliper, but that's warm and needs to cool off now at this point. Well, the sun's going down again and my brain is fried. Fortunately, I did get this brake caliper tacked on in place where I want it to start, just to see if this is going to work. But I'm nothing but troubled at this point. This master cylinder is designed to be sitting in an upwards position, and there are a couple of YouTube videos where you can make a linkage system where when that pulls, it rotates and pushes up on this cylinder, and I see the idea. It's just my brain's just fried and I can't think. And the other part of me says that I don't think this is gonna work out for what I need, because realistically, you wanna put your master cylinder right where the brake pedal is and have a small linkage going to there. I'd rather do that if possible, if it means I have to buy a separate master cylinder and some custom brake line and bleed the brakes, and God forbid if I can bleed the brakes with this way that this is sitting. So this might bite me in the ass later. I'm gonna end up paying for it, but it's just one of those, you gotta learn as you go. So we're gonna take a break, and then the next segment, hopefully I'll have some parts and an idea of what's happening next. Didn't account for that. That was my bad, but we can let it slide or just keep on running with it. Okay, now the caliper's mounted in a different position. When I put my line in here, it should clear my juggernaut. At least that's the hope. But I realized that with the bracket I had welded over here earlier, I wasn't gonna be able to remove the caliper. So I had to do a similar system to what I did with the trike. Make a separate bracket that bolts to the bracket for the caliper, so that way I can undo two 5/16 bolts underneath with the nuts welded on the back side of my caliper mount, and we should in theory be able to slide this out now. But now it's tacked in place. These are all for cosmetics essentially. They might serve as a battery tray or something later on, probably not because of the proximity of the belt, but you never know. Didn't account for that CV, that little bend there, pucker in my slot, but I mean, I don't think anyone's really going to know. It's between you and me. Wink, wink. Just kind of rolled things out of the way. We shouldn't have any binding or issues here. Oh yeah. Should be golden. Good for a test, and then everything's good, we can fully weld it out down the road. And as far as the front master cylinder goes now, I got two of these identical brackets of some 1/4" bolts. I slotted them in the event there was any misalignment. Plus I was using a tape. This will sit somewhere coped into that pipe. And then I can use a linkage concept to go from here to there in one shot. Okay, I'm sorry I didn't film any of this. This is just one of those cases where it's going to take me longer to set up and film every step than it is for me to get something done around here. But here's essentially what I've got going on now that I've updated you. I've got my master cylinder tacked in place with these 4 tacks. And I have this linkage here that's using the factory hole that's not being used on the brake pedal. And I had to figure out the center to center and then my vertical offset, and then have to tweak the bracket so the plunger points down. But I think I've got full compression here when I brake on it like this. This is definitely gonna be one of those cases where we're gonna have to really test and see when the brakes are bled and everything's working. I'm actually not sure if this is gonna work or not, and it could be a foreshadowing for later, but this is definitely one of those cases where I wanted to have everything done on this cart before our event's coming up, but I think it's one of those I'm going to have to accept driving this as like a prototype to make sure everything works, and if everything does, then powder coat it after we've proven that it works, and then I can survive a few beatings, so that way I don't have to come back and screw myself here. And if I get in the cart, ooh, feet are definitely set up differently. We definitely pump the brakes. There we go. Okay. I'll have to show this on camera, but I guess I'm gonna have to. Yeah, actually that. Ooh, I'm just gonna have to get a feel for the pedal, or I might have to make some pedal extensions. Like was done on this side here so that my feet can actually sit a bit better, not offside, because I'm hitting the cylinder. If I put it on the outside, that probably would have worked better in my favor, but it's a Dingo, it's compact. What do you expect?
And if we live forever, let us live forever tonight.
Alrighty, it's been about a week or so. I've got a plan. So I was able to find a Brakeline on Amazon to help suit my needs to go from A to B on the Dingo. I measured it from where I need to plug into the front of the reservoir to the back of the caliper, averaged about 52 to 54 inches. This line claims to be 59 inches, give or take. I looked at it thinking this is not long enough, but then I stretched it out and double checked it. I've got a little bit of slack, but then this should work provided that I route this correctly. Now, this was rather cheap, had little to no reviews, so I'm almost mixed about this. So worst comes to worst, if this doesn't work out, I have another one on the way that should be here in the next couple of days as a backup, or if something didn't go right with this. I also bought a Harbor Freight brake bleeder and vacuum pump kit because I am going to need it for the way that this is set up. I'm going to have to work on trying to get the line routed from A to B, and then I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to lift this cart up on an incline here. And I have an idea, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. All right, I've got the brake line installed, and I'm pretty sure I might have a little bit of problems here, given it has to go from the master cylinder all the way up and up this elevation to said caliper. Fluid mechanics, logistically wise, I don't think this is ideal because we have to try to bleed out that curve, but I think it's one of those I'm going to give it a shot and try it. Means I've got my vacuum bleeder valve here. I'll just give what we can to just go. I also tacked this pipe on just for routing purposes, and just realized that if I'm going to get this post-processed, I'm gonna have to rupture the lines again and then cause everything to spill. But I can re-bleed these. It's no big deal. Didn't think about that, but it's one of those. I'm trying to do some cable management, and I wanted something to kind of compensate for the slack here. This was from the old brake linkage, and it's too small for the Banjo fitting to fit through here, so that's why I found this piece, which I think was part of the old steering hoop, or the steering sleeve for the mechanical steering. That fit just fine, so I got 3 tacks on there. And yeah, a couple more zip ties, and I think she'll be ready to rock and roll. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get set up for bleeding this thing, which involves getting this pedal cart out of the way. Hard to do this one-handed. Probably should get the tri-stand. But yeah, roll that out of the way, then park. And now we can head out, turn around. Brakes, but we can still steer. Okay, here, let this car pass by. Gotta back it up. Don't want to get out of the cart. And that's what it feels to ride the Dingo. We'll have better footage of this, but I apologize if the camera quality was iffy. Hard to drive one hand, but honestly, it does steer when all the tires are aired up. And actually you've got better traction than this, but this is just kind of one of those hard to demonstrate cases. Hopefully that's lifted up high enough. Ideally, if I could lift it up higher, that would be my better bet, just for the sake of pouring in the brake fluid. But let's give it a shot, I guess. I got a fan going just because it's a hot day today, but I got bubbles. Can't see them right now because I've got no pressure in the system, but I just did a pump and it is flowing. It's finally sucking out the fluid. So that tells me I'm starting to get some fluid in the system, which is good. I had to remove the bracket so I could stand it right up because I ended up just making a mess everywhere. And what seems to work is I fill up the reservoir, I give it about 15 to 20 pounds of vacuum pressure with the bleeder valve closed, open it, and the vacuum just sucks all the fluid from the reservoir to the caliper. This was full earlier and now it's about half full. I'll do it again. Let's see if we can get some more. All right, I'm in the thick of it and I'm sorry for jumping all over the place because it's just one of those playing as I go. But I ended up getting a new master cylinder solely because I wanted a fill reservoir that I could control the location of rather than having the cart sit on its behind up in the air trying to bleed the system. I don't even think I was doing it right because I pulled the caliper in the vacuum and then I'm getting bubbles and stuff, but I ended up catching about half a bottle's worth of brake fluid. I think I was sucking out the fluid more than I was trying to keep it in the system. It also could just be the fact of the way my caliper's positioned. I don't know. This is admittedly one of my first time bleeding brakes and I'm learning as I go. So we're gonna reuse this line. We're getting away from that cylinder up there that I jerry-rigged up there just to kind of bleed with gravity. And then I've got this new cylinder, 1-day delivery, thank you Amazon Prime. I'll leave a link in the description for this guy. And I ended up recycling a piece of the mechanical brake caliper bracket that we cut off. I shaped it to the radius of the bottom of this cart, and then I'm recycling my linkage plate to act as kind of like a tie-in on the underside there, so we can rosette that hole there, and then we can weld on the underside here and cut off that excess right there. I'm hoping that's going to be strong enough, just with a couple or different points of contact. If not, then, well, you don't know till you know. All right, all welded up. Got one good weld there, and a little bit of tie-in on the other underside, and a little bit under there. The other side doesn't have to be pretty because that's the side you don't really see, but what's critical is whether or not if this is going to work. I am mixed about it, but worst comes to worst, an idea that I have floated in my head is to maybe have some kind of tab or something that's removable, well, bolt-on or removable, so that way I don't weld to this, causing this whole front roll cage assembly to be fixed, because it is supposed to be bolted together based off this plate here. All the elements have cooled and I've got it all officially mounted. It's all nice and weld and cool to the touch, and I even welded on a little itty bitty tab left over from my linkage bracket. And I might shorten this hose length just because I don't like the low spot that we have here, but this is all plug and play for me. But we have a direct couple to the brake pedal using the original hole from our brake rod that went to the back, and we've got full piston compression. Feels stiff as it is, but I don't have any fluid in here yet. But that's like where I guess we need to start bleeding in the brakes and get something figured out. All right, good news everyone. It's been probably about 30 minutes, 45 minutes or so wrestling with the brakes, and I figured out what I need to do, and I can safely say that the Dingo has got brakes. So I can roll it back and forth. I'll put my foot down, and it wants to stop. So I think we need to go test this. Okay, we're gonna roll it down the hill first. Ooh. It stops. It stops. All right, now that was actually a really good test. Just a little break-in test for that matter. We still need to do a full rally out and see how she really does. But that proves that this system conceptually should work. Now there's still probably a couple of imperfections. There might be a couple lagging air bubbles, but there was a difference between when I was still bleeding it to the point where I got it all, and I felt the difference, and I just realized, all right, I think she's there. So I'll keep an eye on it and bleed it more if I need to, but that worked. You also then got an idea of how it sounds flying by, both going away and coming towards with this new street bike muffler that we've installed. And I'm pretty happy with it, how it sounds. It's a nice little thumper. The tractor flap makes a nice cosmetic, and also a bonus rain cap in the event that this is parked outside, which hopefully shouldn't be the case in here, but it's there in the event of. So now that means that later on I can fully weld out the majority of our bolt-on bracket, unbolt our caliper with everything still attached, and weld anything else there that I may need to. But it's all there, all the elements are here. We are ready to move on to the next step and just get this near completion here. Now, there's one more thing in the back that I want to do, and that's going to be saved for a later episode. But then, just to give you guys a little bit of a preview of what's to come, this might have something to do with it. But we'll save that for a later date, guys. So if you're enjoying this mega episode so far, go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. Let me know what you think about the build so far. I might have a name for it, but I'm still deciding on it. But yeah, other than that, guys, my name is Cater Nighthawk, and I'll see you guys later.